What's up, guys? Today I figured I'd make a video because I was looking for a tube tester after having some problems with some tubes. And the one I wanted to get was the orange VT1000, which unfortunately they don't, make anymore. And there is a way to check tubes, and I'll link this video in the description, and it's actually what I did. All it's doing is checking for shorts. This happens to be, if I recall correctly, an EL34 and pin 2 and 7. Pin 2 and 7 should have continuity, none other than that. On your 12AX7, they should have continuity between pin 9, 4, and 5. And the other tubes I can't tell you because I wasn't interested in them. So again, this is one way to check it. And you're going to hear a lot of people, if you're in the market for a tube tester, try and tell you all of this fucking bullshit. And we'll start off over here. I knew nothing about tube testers other than the orange. And after this point, I'm kind of sorry I learned anything. Simply because these things were made for service guys that, would go to somebody's house and work on the radios or TVs more likely. And now everybody and their grandmother and then their great-grandmother and then people that ain't here anymore, everybody, finds these and is like, oh yeah, and this is going on for almost a decade and a half. And what you're buying is fucking junk. Even this one here. All right, it looks in good shape, this and that. And, I asked on the forums, I said, what do you guys think about this compared to the orange? And they said, no, you don't want an emissions tester. So what's an emissions tester? It's a very basic thing. It'll check for shorts, it will check for emissions, and then it'll check for, gas leaks, grid shit. And I asked this guy, before I even asked on the forum, I said, what's the best you could do? He said 450. So, I mentioned it on the forum. I was told, for an emissions tester, he's fucking crazy. And then I searched eBay and I thought, okay, well, 250 ain't too bad. And then I went back to the forum and they said, yeah, it's still too much. So these things are worth like 60, 70 bucks tops. And with all of them, you need the tube chart. If you don't have the owner's manual, that's one thing, but, just make sure you can find the owner's manual because these do need to be calibrated. So the tube chart's very important, which brings me to this Eco 666, the devil number. And then you got the Eco 667. Now these things, they're going for quite a bit of money and have been for some time. And basically, all of these are run-off tube, unless you go with this one here. This is actually a solid state, and they do make a brand new solid state board. But on top of the 325, because I had dealings with this guy here, and I almost bought this one, and I'm glad I didn't, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So going back to this Eco 667 and the 666, these are known in the tube chart to have typos. So if you set something wrong and you take that brand new, new old stock or brand new tube and you set one of these switches wrong and then you press the fucking button, boom, there goes your tube. You just burned the filament out. And if you look over there, you could see there's either a 6L6, 6V6 or an EL34. But right up there, right there at that fucking knob, they're all taps off your transformer. If you don't know what a tap is, they take a transformer, and it's a very important part that breaks down the voltages. As you can see, there's numbers all around there. They have to be set to the filament inside that tube. And if you set it incorrectly, boop, tube gone, end of story. And these days, nobody wants to do that. The other thing you're going to hear a lot of is this. So you got your micro MOS, which is on a mutual conductance tester, which is far better than an emissions tester. But again, these things are 70 plus years old. And this guy here, he was honest with me, and he said, yeah, if you're looking to test 12AX7s, anything from China or Russia, not China, Russia. He said the JJs will test good in it, but there's two sections of tubes in these 12AX7s that need to be tested. And your groove tube, which I happen to have, can't be tested. Tungsol and Sovtech, they can't be tested in it. So you just, are limited with this one. This happens to be the 606. This has, it still has to be calibrated. They all do. Then we get to this big boy here. And you're going to hear a lot about Hickok and the 600A and the 6000A. And the 539C and everything else, and everybody's gonna blow smoke up your ass or piss on your leg and tell you it's raining, that this thing is the best. Well, I'm gonna say it this way. It's 70 plus years old, and the price for this, and I don't care, it says works, needs a new power cord. Works means it turns the fuck on. That's the bottom line. So if you see parts, works, or untested, I would be very skeptical on buying it, because the ones that do work, people don't want to get rid of them. They hold on to them. In this one here, there's a 83 rectifier tube along with another tube that I can't recall the number of, but they no longer make them tubes. You can get them. They're new old stock, which brings me to my next point of these. These testers were made to test tubes of yesterday, like, all them years, decades ago. New tubes are manufactured different. And just because you get somebody to recap it, put new resistors in it, and calibrate it, and you're thinking, oh yeah, you're good in this and that. Even though it's a mutual conductance tube tester, it's still going to vary. It's not the greatest. It really isn't. Now, I did come across Maxi Matcher, but you got to buy one for your power tubes and one for your preamp. Both run right around $1,000. So I don't know about you, but I got a lot better things to do with $2,000 than, dump it on some fucking tube testers that, first of all, the factories that are making these, they got high quality equipment. They make them to today's standards. And everybody and your grandmother, like I said, is, coming across these. You got Facebook Marketplace. You got Fiji or Ouija or Digikey or whatever the fuck that Canadian site is. And then you got Offer Up and all of that stuff. And I mean, I spoke to one lady, and she's like, oh yeah, I just sold one, and see what the guy has to say 3 days ago. It's, and it was emissions tester. And I'm like, bitch, I don't care what the fuck it was. I don't care what he said. Did he test it? Did he calibrate it? Did he just plug it in and say, oh, okay, it works? Even with these, they don't test exactly like the factory. And in fact, this guy, he's showing right here, oh, it works. And he did tell me, he said it works. Well, the little red light over there, that's not lit up. And then down in his description here, it says, except for the heater bulb. So right here, beside, let me see if I could get this, there. Right beside the meter, there's a little GE number 55 bulb here and here on the circuit board. They're soldered in there. So either it could be burned out, and it's an important piece because that's line voltage, and that's what keeps it in check. They don't burn very brightly, and I was told, you know, they do burn out over the course of time. And this guy, you know, he says, oh, you know, my father had this, I didn't even know I had this and this and that. And he's trying to, you know, blow smoke up my ass. And I'm like, bro, you could tell me whatever you want to tell me. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. And you can ask what you want to ask, but is anybody going to buy it? Are these things selling? Yeah. People are buying them? Yeah. But the ones buying them probably don't know what they're looking at. They don't know what they're buying. They don't know how to fix them. And you're going to need a qualified tech to fix them. Believe me. Just because you have some technical knowledge, these are pretty complex pieces of machinery. The needles, you know, on the meters do get stuck. There's several problems. The tube sockets, they get loose. You'll be replacing sockets, and you know, let me get one and I'll show you the inside of it. All right, so this is the B&K 747B that I was looking at, and you can see right here there's two light bulbs. Now they look like they twist out, but they don't. And right next to it, you can see these gray you know, capacitors here. These are electrolytic, and they're axial type, meaning the legs come out of each side. And if you look over here, here's a carbon resistor, and then we got some you know, newer type resistors in here. And then you have a diode here. And then you have an old trim pot here. Now these things tend to freeze up, and these are ceramic resistors. These tend not to go bad, but these pots here do tend to go bad, and you're going to want to replace, you know, these two, and these are 250 volts each. So you might want to make sure you're draining them before you go touching them. And then you got two down here, and then if we skip forward, you could see the rat's nest of wires here that you're looking at, and these are all the switches and all. But there is a capacitor over here, and this one happened to be burned out, which did affect, you know, the calibration. There's a fuse up here in the upper right hand corner, and the meter is behind this. This is the new, this board can be replaced, but there's some parts off of it. And this is the board that costs $219.99. We come over here to this thread, and I know the two bulbs are critical, and if one fails, it makes the whole unit inoperative. And that's what I tried telling this douchebag here. And, you know, he's arguing with me. He's thinking I'm trying to fucking rip him off. And I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you, it's not worth it. Go put it back on eBay and, you know, good luck selling it. I don't give a shit. It's no sweat off my balls. I care less. Worst case scenario is you buy one of these, and you not only lose your money, but you can, you know, lose your house too, because these things are old. And components, capacitors, resistors, they drift, they short. The transformer is the big one. With this one here, here's the transformer down here, and all these wires are taps that go to that one knob that I showed you that changes voltage for the filament. And this is not the only pot in here. There's one down here, there's one down here, and all of them have them. But the most important thing to look out for if you're looking at these, you know, if it doesn't have the chart to set everything up, it's not going to work. It's just an expensive paperweight that you're going to sit around your house, and you're going to end up throwing it out. And you're going to want to look up the corrections, because you'll burn tubes out left and right. The other thing is, you know, I was told that you cannot test a tube, you know, for shorts. Yes, you can. You could take it, and the one guy told me, no, you can't use an ohm meter because it, you know, it's going to read continuity. Well, this guy right here, he did the same thing I did. Pin 7, and you ground it to pin 2. These are numbered. Most of them are numbered. Some of them ain't. And if you should have continuity here, but you shouldn't have it on any other pins. And then the same thing like with this 12AX7. Pin 9 and then 4 and 5 over here should have continuity, and nothing else, nothing else should have continuity. This is a two-stage tube, and there's two different tubes, or two different stages in that tube. So you would have to come over, and like some of our switches, some of our dials, you'd have to kind of twist to test one section of the tube and then the other section, and they should be fairly matched. You don't need one of these things to test for shorts, and I'm just looking for shorts on here. But your heater voltage, like that's the voltage, that's the taps coming off the transformer that you set there. A, B, and C, that does something else. And then here's the shorts button if you look right there. And then grid emissions, you don't want the needle on the very bottom part here to go above. If you do, you got bad emissions. Quality, you want it to be in the good. But again, it's an emissions tester, and even with the mutual conductance, just because it goes there doesn't mean it's exactly where it's at. That's where, professional equipment really comes into play, and you're wasting your money on this shit, and you're making other people, a lot of money, and you got people bidding, and then, the price, on eBay and everything is going up, and like I said, everybody and their grandmother's making money on these things. You buy it, you bring it home, and then the next thing you know, it don't work, or your tubes aren't testing right, or, like this one, it only tests, new old stock, and most of them are, well, they were made to test new old stock because they had a different manufacturing process. So, with that said, make your own decision, fight amongst yourselves in the comments. I don't want to hear no bullshit or anything. But even this one here, it says it was calibrated. This was a very simple one to calibrate. There's like, one or two things you have to do, and that's it. But, I don't give a shit what you do with your money. It's your money. You spend it the way you see fit. But if you want to continue to be the problem and make people have income on old junk that should just be thrown in the landfill, be my guest.